Hey, I am Heather, and this is one way that I study for a crazy difficult microbiology exam this week. One of the topics that I have to know about for the exam is about proteobacteria. And don't mind all the loud noises in the background, it's just my dogs playing around. Anyway, proteobacteria was discovered by a dude named Woese. And I remember that because he was obviously a pro on the microscope to be able to check all this kind of stuff out. And whenever he's looking in the microscope, he's like, whoa, check out this proteobacteria. Anyway, so Pro and Woese. Now, proteobacteria has a few different categories that it falls into, and most of the words that we are memorizing are Latin. This, for some reason, is Greek, so they have Greek terms: alpha, beta, gamma, delta. And if you were in a Greek organization, you know that. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, psi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. All right, anyway. So alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon. Now, if you think about it all on like a bell curve, so alpha, beta, gamma is the height, delta, epsilon, I just kind of think about it like that because gamma is the largest of all of those. Now, let's look at alpha. So alpha, for some reason I think of an alpha male, and an alpha male is probably pretty hot-headed and, like chases all the girls and all this kind of stuff, right? So they don't really need a whole lot except for themselves. Like, I don't need you, right? So they really don't need a whole lot of nutrition in their environment. They're really kind of, like, I can do it on my own. But they're looking for a host to multiply. And they are intracellular because, they want to get in that. And because an alpha male is usually kind of hot-headed, then rickettsia is going to give you a fever, whether it's from ticks or lice, it's going to give you a fever. And then because the alpha male is probably getting all the chicks, then there's a really good chance he has chlamydia. So there you go. Proteobacteria, alpha, low nutrition, intracellular, needs host to multiply. Rickettsia, the symptoms are a fever, whether it's Rocky Mountain fever or typhus fever, and then chlamydia. And you can either get chlamydia in your eye or, Okay, so beta. So now we're working our way up the bell curve. Now, beta is probably a beta male is probably a little more reasonable. So that's, that could be better, like almost euphoric, so eutropic. Then they are probably not going to need as many resources as an alpha male would. They are going to need more help than an alpha male would, so they need more nutrition in their environment. And a lot of nutrition just comes from mammalian guts, so that's usually where it's from. Like, you and I take in a lot of nutrition if you eat healthy, so be sure and eat healthy. So mammalian guts, dogs and humans are both mammal. So whooping cough and kennel cough, Bordetella. I just remember that because of the Bordetella vaccine, or the shot that the dogs have to have before they're boarded. Anyway, the beta beta male. He can also have STDs. It's not as like crazy as the idea of having chlamydia, but you can have STDs. So you have gonorrhea, and then you have meningitis. So like a lot of college students have to get the vaccine for like bacterial meningitis. So that's where that comes from. Now, meningitis is in your brain and spinal column, your central nervous system, which is fluid filled, and then, you know, STD is fluid, right? So this beta proteobacteria has to have moisture, which makes it a little bit harder to culture. So then you have the gamma proteobacterias, and so we're working our way up the bell curve. Gamma is the highest, so it has the vast majority of the bacteria. It is a very diverse pathogen. Now, I need to try to figure out how to remember all of these, but one cool gamma proteobacteria is the Vibrio, and I just remember that as like the squid. It's almost, as it swims, it almost kind of looks like it's vibrating, Vibrio, but it's aquatic. So you have cholera, which is water contamination, but then you also have Vibrio fischeri, and it is the bacteria that makes squids glow in the dark. And then, because it is so diverse, you also have a family. So you have an Enterobacter family. And the family, you know, there's usually a black sheep of the family. So you have the cholerae and non-cholerae. Of course, you're going to have like two different types of people. So cholerae and non-cholerae. And cholerae just sounds like E. coli. So the cholerae is the E. coli. It's a pretty common bacteria, unfortunately. And then you have the non-cholerae, which is salmonella. Anyway, both gross, pretty common, kind of like family members. So then, fourth is delta. So you're working your way down the bell curve. So then you have delta is a smaller group of bacteria. So it's a small group. There are fewer pathogens, but you can also remember it's starting that decline, and so it reduces. And so you have your delta bacterias reduce sulfates. Anyway, I need to try to remember how these fall under delta. So you've got D oral, so oral, so periodontal disease. You have B Delavibrio, kind of sounds like this up here, the gamma, but Delavibrio is a parasite, and it's very motile, and it's a lethal bacteria. I need to try to figure out how to memorize that part. And then Myxobacteria, it's a slime bacteria. And I just remember that one because it's like sliding down the other side of the bell curve. So the last one on the bell curve is epsilon. Proper Greek term for that is epsilon. So epsilon is the smallest, because you go down at the bottom of the bell curve on the other side. It's the smallest group. It's a microaerophilic. And then you have Campylobacter and Helicobacter. So Helicobacter is like the H. pylori. It's not heard of all the time, but if you're not so lucky enough, you can get it, and it stays with you forever and ever, amen, in your gut. Kind of sucks a little bit. But then your Campylobacter is chickens, and it's a really common food poisoning. There you go. On to the next video.